Evolutionary.org Hardcore 2.0, episode number 13, lucky 13. Today we're talking about summer abs and low body fat. How do you do it with Pharmacom? So if you've ever dreamed of being one of those people walking down the beach, no shirt on, everybody's looking at you, checking you out, be like, wow, that dude is ripped. I want those abs on that dude. So this is going to be the episode for you. And Pharmacom has a lot of great options when it comes to that. Not just steroid options, but we're going to focus a lot on the different steroids they do. We're also going to focus on the non-steroid options that Pharmacom has, which is very, very impressive, very unique. And then we're also going to talk about strategies to how to get those abs. Strategies in the kitchen, strategies in the gym, strategies outside the gym, how you can get them done. We all want that. I don't care how old you are. Okay, you could be teenager, you could be in your 60s. You've got abs, that's instant respect, because people are going to look at you and they're going to be like, damn, that dude takes care of himself. That dude respects himself. All right. That dude isn't an addict when it comes to food. He doesn't just eat what he wants. So a lot of respect. Women, men, whatever, if you're trying to date, they're going to look at you like, wow, you got abs? This is someone who I have to work at. I have to raise up to be with them. So very, very important to have abs. So let's first get into Pharmacom, Mobster. And Pharmacom is an excellent, excellent, excellent place to get your steroids. Why don't you touch on them a little bit?
Right, so we did this in the previous podcast, Steve. I'm going to reiterate this, guys, for you new listeners and those of you rechecking them out. What did I say previously, Steve? Right, number one, an approved source, and everything that an approved source means and is, which basically means we've checked it out, we've done test sales, we brought stuff from them. We know that there are members of our forum and moderators like ourselves that have tried out their product to see what it's like, to see what their sales is like, see how the package got to us, whether it was well packaged and so on, whether they could be trusted. But the thing that I want to touch on, especially, Steve, is the simple fact that you can actually see the manufacturing process as it's done. You can go onto their main website. You can research Pharmacom for yourself, guys. You go onto Google, you find their main site, and you can see the manufacturing process, the laboratory machinery that you use, how the products are packaged, how the products are made, how they're pressed, the security issues, every single aspect of that process, Steve, is covered with videos. Now, we have other approved sources. But what other approved sources has this depth of information to show you, not just to talk about, but to show you what they're doing, how it's done, etc. And then we can get into stuff like certificates of analysis and stuff like that. Tell me of another source that has that depth of information, Steve, as the actual videos of the processes of manufacturing that you can see for yourself. Not just Mobster and Steve telling you you can go and check this out and see the videos that they produced of the products being manufactured, Steve.
Yeah, and you really can't. A lot of sources, first of all, they're too lazy to do that. All right, let's be honest. They don't have the staff. It's just a solo operation or like two or three guys. One guy's a drop shipper, one guy produces the steroids, one guy handles the shipping. It's like a little operation. This is an actual lab. This is an actual company, okay? This is a place that has regulations that make sure their products are quality. This is not a bathtub brewer here, okay? Out in the middle of the sticks, brewing gear, okay? Putting it in their pickup truck and driving it down to the post office and shipping it, or driving it down to the local gym and having one of their guys there paying them a 20% commission to sell the steroids to people in the gym. All right. It's underdosed. It's garbage. Okay. There's no testing behind it. This stuff is actually tested. They're not going to sell it unless they test it first. And I mean, it's amazing on their website how much incredible gear that they sell. And they want you to go on there and they want you to really, really see all the different options that they have. And you can go on there and check it out on their website. And this is why Pharmacom is an approved source on the best websites out there. They are approved because the representatives The moderators have used them, and they have different options. Nice thing about it too, Mobster, that I like, is they have different options no matter where you live. So you can live on your side of the pond, you can live on my side of the pond, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They are going to have products in stock. They're very transparent about what's in stock, what's out of stock, and you can make the decision based on where you live on what to order. And they have different options. So I really like the fact too that they have both vials and amps. Some people like amps better than vials. Some people like vials better than amps. So they have different options for you, and they have a lot of good information on their website. You can go on there, for example, and check the code. How many sources have that? Where you can actually check the code, make sure that you have the actual legitimate product from the laboratory itself. That wasn't a secondhand product. They've got lab reports. They have reviews. They have a section for innovations. They have a FAQ section, which they give different informations from. They're not resellers as well. That's a big advantage too to me, because that saves you money on your end, because you're not dealing with a reseller. There's no middleman. So it goes straight from them to you. So now you're able to save money. So Mobster, yeah, touch on more of that.
Yeah, let me do this. But in a pre-show, Steve and I were discussing what we're going to talk about today, as we do with every podcast. And let me do a very, very quick history lesson for you guys. So I'm old enough, and I think Steve is just about old enough to remember when we used to buy products in ampules way, way back in the day. And for whatever reason, the last 15, 20 years of PED, new GLs and all the rest of that kind of stuff, usage and where we were buying our product for, the ampules fell out of favor. Why is that? It's because they're so fucking hard to make, Steve. It's much easier. I could do, and Steve and I, if we absolutely wanted to, we could set up a process right here, kind of amateurish, it has to be said, Steve, where I could make up product in vials. You can buy the clamps, you can buy the rubber bungs, it's easy peasy. But the manufacturing of ampules is difficult. So a lot of UGLs don't do it. But back in the day, when we were buying stuff from India and Pakistan and this place and that place, you knew you had solid ass product if a company or a lab produced ampules, because it's so much harder than producing a vial. Now, vials are super popular, Steve, because of course you've got enough there for typically 10 injections. A little bit less if you use more, guys, but for most people with a dose, it's about 10 injections per vial. Ampules are a one-time go, and in order to get into them, you have to break them. So if a lab manufactures ampules, they are 100% serious. It's almost impossible, because it's just such a pain in the ass to make, Steve. It's almost impossible for me to think that you'd go to to do the work to manufacture the ampule to then not to provide decent product inside. There's a lot of dodgy labs out there that are not approved, and we hear about these all the time, that their product's going to be in vials. And of course, our approved sources do produce solid ass products in vials. But how many of those sources are also providing in-house, guys? They're not reselling another company's product. It's their own product. They're manufacturing in-house to produce these vials with the product inside. To me, that's just a plus, Steve. To me, it's just another sign of me having good faith, regardless of anything else, obviously with the certificates of analysis, the reviews, the lab reports, everything that they do. It's just another indicator, just a straightforward indicator of a solid ass company producing solid product, because it's just not done by most labs. There's too much work for them. They don't want to do it. But Pharmacom have gone to that, and they've done it, and they produced it. And I've got some, we're going to talk about products shortly, but most of your options is for both with ampules and for vials. They're giving you the option of the one dose and throw it away, or the 5 to 10 doses and reuse, etc. So to me, it's just a great positive indicator of a company that's putting the hard work in to produce solid product, to build up their reputation, to get it out there, and to provide you with quality product to bring to the market. So yeah, right there. And as I said, they make things easy. I'm on one of the reseller sites right now, Steve, and you've got a whole page just of lab reports. You don't have to look around, guys. You can just literally look up what you're thinking of buying and check out the lab report right in front of you, because it's literally alphabetical, top to bottom, easy to look at. And then obviously you can go and look on their own parent website and do exactly the same with the product, etc., etc. So they've made it as easy as possible for you to make a choice, check out the product, and then giving you multiple options on how you can buy it. Back to you, Steve.
All right, so let's check out our next topic, and that's fat loss options. Actually, it's like on a subtopic we're just talking about. So another cool thing about Pharmacom, they have a lot of different fat loss options. So Mobster, why don't you start us off with some of the stuff that you really like on their website that could bring a lot of good fat loss benefits to a lot of our listeners.
Right. So again, I'm looking on a reseller site here, Steve, right in front of me, and they have a fat loss page. And on the fat loss page, they have a combination of thyroid drugs and clenbuterol. Now, I'll read this off to you guys, just so you know that I know what I'm looking at. This is what you're going to see when you're checking it out. Now, you've got, you'll have to forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, Steve. It's not a word I use every single day. Triodothyroid, and again, not a word I use every single day, which they call Tyros, and you get 50 pills there, Steve. They do a clenbuterol, which they call Meltos. They do a version, which I believe is one of the few times you'll see something under another label, which is clenbuterol Balcan, a cytomed Balcan, which is another thyroid drug, and then a clenbuterol with yohimbine as a combination. And again, that's under a slightly different label. The first two are under the specific Pharmacom label, and it's the name of the product that they particularly use. Now, what am I saying here, guys? So, am I a fan of thyroid and or clenbuterol? No, because you can, if you don't follow the dosages, and you do need to come onto the forums, and you do need to check out our advice in this particular regard. What I do see outside of Evolutionary, outside of these kind of podcasts, is piss poor advice, Steve, on taking these products, not putting the work in. But of course, as always, we are 100% on the dosages and 100% on making sure that you do put the work in. If you do that, and Pharmacom are going to want you to do that to get the best possible results, and you listen to the advice we give you, and then you use these products, you will get outstanding results. And you will minimize, again, because that's the way that we give our advice on this podcast, Steve, you will minimize the side effects. That's not to say you won't get any. As a great example, clenbuterol, I believe off the top of my head, Stephen, without double checking, 20 to 40 micrograms a day. At the higher dosages, you are going to get a sensation for a touch of what feels like sometimes for some people anxiety. In reality, it's like having a crazy amount of coffee. You will feel stimulated. You will feel it having its effect. Now, as an example here, Steve, the clenbuterol Balcan is a 40 micrograms dosage. And again, that doesn't mean you have to take the whole pill. You can take a little bit and work up to it. So half a pill at 20 micrograms and go up to 40 micrograms a day. And in fact, that's exactly how I'd probably have you run it, Steve, just to see how you get on with 20 micrograms to begin with. Solid ass product here, going to give you the results. But of course, along with everything else that we're going to talk about, Steve, vis-a-vis other performance enhancing drugs that they provide, and obviously then tips that we can give you in regards to diet, conditioning, fasting, and all the other work that you can possibly do to get the best possible results, the perfect length of time to run it from, and so on and so forth. But again, how easy do they make it? You've got a specific fat loss page with these thyroids, with the clenbuterol right there in front of you. Dead simple to look at. You can click on it and find out more information. And basically, to me, Steve, they're just making it as easy as you possibly can, including right here. I'm looking at it right now, Steve. The warehouse information, which we're going to get into towards the end, I think, to make sure you guys make no mistakes, both with purchase, shipping, the right choice for you, stock availability, like Steve said earlier, and so on and so forth. But again, what do I like? I like the simple fact that it's laid out for you in as simple as a form as possible, with the warehouse stockage information underneath, sensibly priced. Every single thing here is sensibly priced as I look at it. And these products work if you know how to use them, and we will give you that advice on our forums. What do you like about the fat loss pages, Steve, and their fat loss products?
Look, the bottom line is some of you are going to react really well to clenbuterol T3. Pros use it. My old podcast host was a pro, and he definitely used them. So thyroid and clen, if you're new to this, obviously it's just not necessary for you. But if you've been in the game a while, you really want to take things to the next level, then people use it. And bodybuilder to have that access to stuff like this that bodybuilders have access to. It'd be like getting a stock tip, okay? If you're getting a stock tip from someone who works for Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch or something, they have access to the best information they're giving that information to you. So at least you have the access. That shows you with Pharmacom, you have access to the same stuff that pro bodybuilders have access to, that the best out there models, the best models have access to. So that gives you, I think that gives you just like a peace of mind of knowing that. And it kind of evens the playing field where everybody has access to the same thing. Obviously, it's going to boil down to training, diet, workouts, your mentality and other issues like sleep and all this stuff. And then obviously genetics. So, you may never look like them, but you're going to damn well try, and you're going to damn well come as you're going to get the best out of you. And that's the whole point at this. So that kind of leads us to the next topic, why abs are important. Stroking the ego and being, confident in yourself, and not cocky, but being confident. And that's an alpha. That's the alpha mentality. And that's one of the things that we talk a lot about on this podcast. And 99% of the time on these other podcasts, they want to tell you what being alpha is all about, but they're full of shit. They themselves are the betas, and they're trying to give you advice. They've never been an alpha in their life. So we want to teach you how to do it on this one. We want to show you.
Let me jump in here, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a couple of bits of human biology, art, and nature. We're gonna go highbrow for a moment here, Steve. What draws the eye? Your eye is nearly always drawn to a person's eyes, their face, and then for whatever reason, your eye is drawn to the center of the body. And if a guy's got a stomach that sticks out, instantly. I mean, I'm as strong as a bull, Steve. I really am. But my belly sticks out. And if you didn't know any better, you'd never met me. You didn't know the kind of stuff that I was doing in the gym. You might instantly assume I'm an out of shape kind of guy. Not how much muscle I'm carrying, how powerful I am, or whatever else. So it's a kind of natural response for your eye, especially on the beach, guys. Let's be honest, that's what this is about. Your eye is drawn. You are literally male or female, but especially if it's a male with the stomach and the female's looking, and even with the guys looking at the woman's stomach area, you look at it without even being sometimes aware of it. It's an unconscious thing. So if you are slim-waisted and broad-shouldered as a man, instantly people will assume this guy is a muscular guy. That definition, as Steve said, of being an alpha or whatever else, it's just kind of an aesthetic. It looks good. It looks good to be broad-shouldered and narrow-waisted as a man. Your eye is drawn is a great indicator of health, especially when those abs are popping. Even if you're like me, Stephen, you've only got one or maybe two rows. I've seen photographs of guys with 8-packs right the way down to the groin. And here's another thing, for men and for women, regardless of your sexuality, I think the eye is drawn for those with that kind of the shape of that V that's defined between the hips and the lower part of the stomach, where it goes into the groin. It's kind of a huge indicator of your health. You know that person's in shape. You know that person's almost certainly in condition, and I mean physical condition, cardiovascular, etc., etc. And then whether you like to admit it or not, there's a sexual element in that the eye is drawn slowly but surely down the body into the area. And that's just nature. That's just human biology. We try to pretend sometimes we're not animals, but we are, Steve. It's basic biology where you go, okay, so you're on the beach. If a woman walks past and she's got that flat stomach and that line going into her hips, and even if she's got arse and a little bit of thigh meat going on, your eye is drawn there. And we've all got things that we like, whether it's that big butts can't lie, or fat thighs, or whatever. I mean, or skinny, or muscular, or whatever else. It's just where your eye's drawn to. And I think especially what we call guys, I think of again back in the day for me, Steve. If you had good arms, you wore a tight t-shirt, but your stomach stayed covered up. But if you had good abs, you wore one of those loose shirts, sometimes a little bit long sleeve, but you made sure that the stomach was exposed. Let me give you one more thing, Steve, and this is just that kind of stuff. So I'm training, I think I was 19, 20 years of age. I'm sunbathing on my mum's balcony, on her flat, and I'm training my chest, I'm training my arms, I'm training my back, I'm training my legs, etc., etc., etc. But 3 of the local girls, a couple of drinking buddies, whatever you want to call it, part of our little gang go past, and they call up because they can see my feet up on the balcony rail. And I stand up, I'm wearing some kind of hot pants type thing, and they're like, oh, look at his fat stomach. That's just how it's supposed to be. So that's the reason why. It's not just a great indicator of health, But when you're that age, Steve, especially when you're that age, when you're still out there in the dating scene or whatever else, it's kind of a plus. If you've got that flat stomach thing going on under clothing, it's noticed. But if you're on the beach, it's definitely noticed. If you're sunbathing, if you're up the park playing football and you've got some abs to show, you sure that's probably you're going to probably be one of the first people to pop that vest off, to pop the shirt off. I know you've had this back in the day, Steve. I've seen on your avatar the photograph of you on the beach with that flat stomach of yours. It's just nature, Steve. Beyond and again, think of it even in artwork, guys. All those great Greek sculptures and Roman sculptures, none of them have got stomachs that sticking out. Even Hercules has not got his stomach sticking out, Steve. It's just artistic. Never mind anything else. Back to you.
Yeah, and so the bottom line is, when it comes to it, if you feel like an alpha, you're an alpha. That's the number one thing, I think. So a lot of people are like, oh, you got to do this to be an alpha. You got to do that to be an alpha. You got to look this way to be an alpha. No, you can look however you want. This doesn't make you an alpha. It's how you feel about yourself. You can look like a normal guy with bitch tits, and a gut, and be an alpha. If you feel that you're an alpha. You see what I'm saying? How many times do you see a guy like that with a beautiful woman and he doesn't even have money or anything? You're like, whoa, why is she with him? It's because he's a confident guy and she treats her good and he's a great guy to her. So she respects that. She likes that about him. She likes that he's confident in himself, even though he may not look it. And then you have another guy who looks great. He's got abs and he's got everything, and he doesn't look good. You see what I'm saying? So it's all about how you look. So you're listening to this podcast. Obviously, image is very important to you, and you want abs. So in your particular situation, if you do get abs and you walk around with abs 365 days of the year, like I do,
yeah,
and you're going to be confident no matter what. You go to a pool party, you go to the beach, you take off your shirt, you're going out with a girl, and she comes over to your place afterwards and she's touching on you and she takes off your shirt and she's like, holy shit. She likes that, right? And it makes you feel good. That's what that's what gets you the confidence. So it's very important to have those abs. So what are some non-steroid strategies for summer abs? Diet, fasting is a great strategy. Fasted cardio is a universally used tactic to burn excess fat, because when you do fasted cardio, where you're fasting for a long period of time, then you do the cardio, your body has to tap into those fat stores for energy. But if you get up, eat a big breakfast, pancakes, whatever, and then you go work out, what's your body tapping into for energy? It's going to be those pancakes. So it's not going to get to your body fat. It doesn't need to go after those excess reserves of body fat. So obviously the key to abs is burning excess body fat. We got to get the excess body fat down. So fasted cardio is a great idea. Then after your fasted cardio, don't eat. Let it go, because your body is going to continuously want to tap into energy. It's not going to tap into your muscle first. It's going to tap into your fat first. So let it tap into the fat. So fasting and fasted cardio is doubly effective for fat loss. So if you've got excess fat on your frame, you need to do it. That's the only way your body is going to tap into excess energy. You can take, and these drugs also that Pharmacom has also aids in that. Things that they have that you mentioned, Mobster, that are non-steroid options that you can take to kind of turbocharge that. But you don't have to take a drug to tap into that. I just told you what you need to do. So you got to use willpower. You got to get away from the habitual thing of getting up and throwing a big breakfast at your body. I don't eat breakfast. My first meal, the earliest I eat is about 10:30 in the morning, but I like to eat more like 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock, and then I'll eat in a time restricted window. That allows me to stay lean year round, because my body is not going after the food, the glycogen, the excess glycogen I'm putting in my body. It's going after the excess fat cells for energy. So really, really good idea to get up, do your cardio, don't eat, just hydrate with some water.
So two things here, Steve. One, and Steve just touched on it when he talked about fasted cardio. And I have actually discussed this when we talked about in a previous podcast about training. So your metabolism is stimulated, not just during the workout, and especially if you're using the clean and the thyroid drugs here, but also for some time afterwards. So did you hear what Steve said earlier on? We said give it a bit of time after the workout before you have anything to eat. because your metabolism is stimulated, because it's hitting your fat stores. So something else as well as by way of a tip, Steve, is, and we've mentioned this on other podcasts again, practice your vacuums. What does a ventral vacuum does? It pulls your stomach right in, but it's essentially giving you stomach control. It's giving you abdominal control. So we're going to talk about exercises in a little while, but what we're looking at here, guys, is the ability to maintain the appearance of having a flat stomach. Because what sometimes we can find photographs. You can find photographs online with people ripped and dry with a 6-pack and even an 8-pack, but their stomach is bulging out. And it's actually become a thing in bodybuilding to a point where people were sort of shouting and honoring and say to the judges, you need to mark this guy down. I don't care how ripped he is. His stomach's sticking out like a pregnant woman. Vacuums and abdominal control flatten the stomach and give you the appearance of a flattened stomach, just literally because it's kind of tensed and toned all the time. So that is a big one right there, Steve. Let me talk about something else as well. I mean, actually, I'm going to touch on a couple of steroids here, but I also want to talk about a couple of other options at the end of that. So when we're talking about getting our body fat low, when we're talking about summer abs, we're not bulking. We're not necessarily looking to make our muscles get bigger and stronger, because there's a kind of different time of year for that, and there's different kinds of training. So the two choices for me, and these are orals to begin with, Steve, are both, there's an element of fat burning. Steroids in and of themselves do not fat burn per se, but these are great when your body fat is lower, and they seem to help with getting into shape. But also of what I've written down as my notes here, Steve, muscular retention. In other words, you're dieting down, you're doing conditioning work, and you're trying to retain that hardened muscle that you've built up in another part of the cycle, in another part of the year. And now you're dieting down, looking to condition, and looking to have those summer abs popping. So my first choice here, Steve, is Anavar in the form of oxandrolose, 10 and 25 milligram options. Anavar is a great drug for strength. It's a very, very good drug for not necessarily putting on great loads of weight. Every single time I've used it, I've never gained more than 5 pounds on cycle. It's always been a great strength drug for me, but for this instance, as I said just now, it's going to be one for keeping you from going catabolic, allowing you to maintain that hard-earned muscle tissue that you spent 3 months, 6 months working to gain, and at the same time, allowing you to hold on to that muscle while you're dieting, while you're working on the conditioning. The other choice for me, Steve, would be Turinabol in the form of Turinabolus, 10 milligram and 25 milligram options. Again, I like the fact that Pharmacom gives you those options because, for example, so you find some places that would do higher dosages and you end up having to cut the pill or part the pill in half. And again, it's giving you the option to have lower dosages more frequently through the day, or higher dosage less frequently through the day, and just literally allowing you to have the choice of 2 options rather than just giving you one option and you have to muck about with it. I like the fact it does that, Steve. And again, Turinabol, I've touched this before, was specifically designed to maintain a level of muscle tissue without you getting too big. That's the reason why the East Germans had it made. They wanted to be strong, they wanted to be powerful for the athletic events, specifically the Olympic stuff, and at the same time, not have you blow up when you're using it. And I think it's vastly underrated, and I like the fact that Pharmacom provides this and in the 2 options. Again, both of those specifically, in my mind, are for muscular retention while you're working to lower your body fat and at the same time let those abs pop out. What would be your 2 choices, Steve, for other options for our listeners to use to summer abs and low body fat?
Yeah, I like the 2 you said so far. They work really good if you can use them solo or you can use them with other steroids. I especially like Turinabol if you're an active person, because T-bol is one of the ones that I like. If I'm doing a lot of cardio, if I'm doing a lot of like hot yoga, it really helps my performance, but doesn't get in the way because it doesn't give me like crazy pumps, and it just allows me, kind of gives me an extra win. So I really like it. If you like to stay active, if you're the type of person who likes to get up in the morning, go run on the beach, or do stuff like that, like tennis or anything active. So it's going to really help you burn more calories through exercise. So we go over a couple of injectables. First of all, testosterone. Now, some of you out there, testosterone is not a good idea when it comes to abs because you get too much water retention and you just don't like that fluffy look. But for some of you out there, you get tremendous results on testosterone. It can actually shred you up. And I'll explain why. one of the reasons why so many people out there have poor testosterone levels already. So by actually introducing testosterone in their body, it's going to help them burn fat and really, really show off more muscle and grow muscle that you weren't able to before. So how do you know that? Go get blood work done. If you go get blood work done and your testosterone levels aren't that good, then cycling with testosterone can make a huge difference with exogenous testosterone. So one of the things that Pharmacom has that's really cool is they have a lot of testosterone options. And I mean, there's an entire page just on testosterone. They have blends as well. So they have a Pharmatest E300, for example. They have a Pharmatest E250 in amps. They have a Pharmatest E500, which is testosterone enanthate. They have Pharmatest C250, which is testosterone cypionate. They have so many different options. They have a testosterone propionate option, which is called Pharmatest P50. They have a Pharmatest U250, which is an undecanoate option, which is really, really long ester. So no matter what you want, it's a really, really good option. Now, I don't recommend the super long ester when you're cycling steroids, 10, 12 weeks on and then coming off. But if you're doing testosterone replacement therapy, you've decided, you know what, my testosterone levels are too low, I really want to just go on TRT for life, I'm committed to jabbing myself once a week or once every 2 weeks, then the U option would be a great option for you. You can actually jab this every 2 or 3 weeks even. And that would give you, so in this case, it comes in 250. So you would inject it every 2 weeks at 250. But keep in mind, it is going to shut you down when you run any of these anabolic steroids that we're running, exogenous steroids. So you want to make sure that you understand that. Now, if you want to run just a regular cycle, shorter cycles, testosterone propionate might be a really, really good option for you. And of course, you could stack it with any of these other steroids that we're going to discuss in this podcast. Now, if you want a regular 10, 12 week cycle, maybe 14 weeks, then go with the cypionate or enanthate option. So they have really, really good options on their website that you can check out. They also have a blend of 4 testosterone esters. It's called SUST 300, which is what Sustanon is. Sustanon has historically been a blend, and that's what it is. In this case, it's a blend of 4 esters. They also have a testosterone phenylpropionate. So that's kind of in between the cypionate ester and the propionate ester. So it's kind of in between. If you want to inject, twice a week, 2-3 times a week, that would be an option for you. And they have that option both in amps and vials as most of their other products. So it's really, really cool. If you're not a big fan of injecting, you just want to inject, say, once every 2 weeks, you can do the Pharmasus 500. And that's also the Sustanon blend that they put together, but it's a 500 milligram per milliliter. So 1 cc is 500 milligrams. That's huge. So that would mean that you can inject it once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, and you get a good amount of testosterone in your body to work with. Now, they also have a testosterone base option. If you're a guy who doesn't mind injecting every day, or you're a tested athlete, you could go with a base option. This is really cool, Mobster, because a lot of the guys out there, you may be a tested athlete. You may get tested through work. You may be like a pilot who gets tested. You may be a professional athlete. I don't know. But if you're worried about getting tested, you can run the Pharmatest 100 oil base. And that's in and out of your body. There's no ester attached. So it's going to be very, very difficult to have that detected. So my gosh, the amount of options they have on their website is mind-boggling. So, I hope that kind of clears it up on what to use. I just go with cypionate. That's just my bread and butter. It's easy to use when I'm cycling steroids.
Let me jump back in this. I'm going to give you 2 more steroid options in a minute, but another option which is non-steroidal, and funny enough, as you say, so many options. They have 2 different kinds of GW1516. I'll read them both to you, Steve. GW1516 in the form of Henos, and it's a 10 milligram pill, 100 pill can, and the other product, and I'll just click over to this so we looking at the website while we're talking, guys. So you've got the up-to-date last minute information, which is a Pharmahen 50, which is GW1516, 50 milligrams per mil in a vial. So again, like Steve says, you have options on the oral form. They've got a bunch of technical information there, including the stuff about how it's created in the laboratory, the reasons why the Olympics banned it. and the reality, as we know, Steve, of the potential for side effects from GW. And so, for example, I mean, if I was using a Pharmacom 50, the injectable form, I would be looking to use less than 1 ml a day here. There's no need to go as high as 50 milligrams. 20 milligrams is absolutely spot on. But I like the simple fact that they're giving you the options of having a liquid injectable or the oral form of it. And GW is a great one in my mind as part of a fat burning stack, as a way of, we know it's good for conditioning. So your condition is actually going to improve. And that would depend on what else was in the rest of the cycle naturally. But if you took it on its own, and that's probably the best way to run some drugs to begin with, just so you know how you respond and react and feel on them, this would be a great one that's going to improve your conditioning, and at the same time is going to enable fat loss to occur quicker, better, and more efficiently. And that's the reason why it's so popular. And even though it's not actually a SARM itself, it's one of the reasons why it is considered to be one of the best SARMs. And again, for me, something like this, I can actually see me doing something like this, Steve, and using a product like Pharmacom's products, GW, to get into shape, to look good for the summer, and to let those abs pop right out. And that's just that as a SARM option, or as I say, in reality, not actually a SARM. Let me give you the other options while we're talking here, Steve. Masteron. Now, right, so how many times, guys, have we heard me say, and I believe Steve says the same thing, guys, when it comes to Masteron, it will not do the best part of what it does, which is muscle hardness, if you're covered in a layer of fat. But what it will do, as per the other two options that I gave you earlier on, is help you to maintain muscle. And then when you get that body fat down, your muscles will be hard. So you're going to be, listen, what happens, Steve touched on it earlier on, the idea that your lady or your preferred partner is taking his hand, and placing it onto your abdominal region, and it's rock hard. The rest of you should be hard too, but specifically those summer abs, specifically you leaning into shape and having the eye drawn to your abdominal area. And so this is what we're talking about here. Now, Steve, a tight stomach, oh man, that's on another level again. It's not just lean, it's not just ripped, but it's tight. It feels toned. It's almost like you can move it with your fingers, Steve, but it feels like a tight drum. That's what we're looking at here. And for me, Masteron would then be the choice right there for that sensation. Don't ask me to explain the chemical and physiological process, Steve. I haven't got a clue. You'll probably be better at it than I am. But it just makes that muscles, when they're lean, when they're ripped, when your body fat is low enough, it just feel harder. The sensation, and no other drug, I think, does the same thing, Steve. What is the physiological process here? What is it about Pharmacom's Pharma Drop P Masteron product that makes those muscles feel harder? What's going on there?
Yeah, because it's a straight dihydrotestosterone derivative, DHT derivative. So that's just the way it was designed. All these anabolic steroids were derived from hormones. So basically, someone in the lab, they took the hormone, whether it be a testosterone molecule or whatever, and they adjusted atoms here and there, and they adjusted things to make these products, and then they gave them names, and they went from there. So they all did something. They all did something to these things to kind of tweak them. In Masteron's case, they tweaked it so it doesn't aromatize at all. Not only that, but it also drops your estrogen levels in your body. So guys who run testosterone and they'll run Masteron with testosterone, they'll actually say, I don't even need to use an AI in some cases, because let's say they're running 300 milligrams of testosterone just by itself. You're going to need an AI with that unless you want water retention, unless you want estrogenic symptoms. Most guys will. But if you run Masteron 500 milligrams on top of that testosterone, that kind of does the job for you. And that does the job of that aromatase inhibitor, because it actually causes that to different. And this is why females who have had a history of breast cancer, they want to get estrogen down, because estrogen, if you listen to our other podcasts, that estrogen is kind of like a match. It's like the fuel for cancer in our bodies. So you want to definitely always keep your estrogen controlled if you want to prevent that. So with women who've had histories of breast cancer, they will take these anti-estrogen drugs and hormones to drop their estrogen down. In their case, they'll mostly take Nolvadex. But there is some history behind women taking Masteron to help with that as well. And men too, because men can get breast cancer as well. So there is history behind using Masteron to drop estrogen. So that's why when you take Masteron, you get rock hard. You don't have any water retention in your body. Any water retention there is sucked right out by that Masteron. So that's the secret of Masteron. And that's why it's great if you want rock hard abs and really want them popping out. But if you got a big gut and you take Masteron, you're going to harden up muscle. You're going to harden up your abs, and they're going to be covered up by fat. So you got to get rid of the fat before you use Masteron. This is why with Masteron, I recommend under 10% body fat as a minimum, and maybe you can get away with 11 or 12%, but anything higher body fat, don't even waste your time using Masteron. So Mobster, touch on that a little bit, and I'm going to talk about Trenbolone, because we got to talk Trenbolone if we're talking about abs.
So let me just make sure, guys, that you're well aware of the options that are available to you, which is Pharmadro P100, that's in a vial, Pharmadro P100 in ampules, and their Pharmamix M300, which is drostanolone propionate and drostanolone enanthate. So you have, again, that's 3 options, one of which is ampules, 2 of which are in vials. And again, like we've said already, that means that they're covering you more than different kind of ways. Any other company, the Pharmamix M300 would be what we call a fat mix type product. And that's what they've done for you right there. It's there, it's available, and you have all those different kind of options. Oh, one more, Steve. What am I talking about here? You've even got a Pharmamix M300 in ampules. And you've got a Pharmadro E200, Steve, or not just in enanthate, again in vial, same again in ampules, and another Pharmamix one, which is all of these guys, all of these options are going to be for you to harden up. Like we said, Steve, we'll cover some more tricks and techniques at the end when it comes to getting into shape. But make sure with Masteron, with the Pharmacom options, you have got your body weight down to the levels that Steve's already talked about. Right, Steve, jump in there with your trend.
Okay, so Tren is the king of all steroids. Anybody who's used it knows. So they have a lot of Tren options at Pharmacom. They have, first of all, they have a Tren base. And Tren base, if you're a big Tren person, it's worth trying. So with Tren base, it's like the no ester testosterone. It's going to be in and out of your system. So you want to take it pre-workout. So a lot of guys like to do this. Again, if you're tested, you don't want to get shot. But also if you want, it's like a pre-workout. It's like taking a pre-workout. And a lot of guys love it because it's in and out of your system. You don't have to deal with side effects on other days you're not training. So you can take it, have that little benefit when you're actually training with the strength and with the pumps and all that good stuff. Next, they have the Trenbolone acetate. It's called the Pharmatren A100. And they have it both in vial and amps. So Trenbolone acetate, really, really good option if it's your first time using Tren, because it's going to be in and out of your system a lot quicker than the enanthate, which is the next one we're going to talk about. They have Pharmatren E200, both in amps and vials. And that's going to be 200 milligrams per milliliter per cc. So this is a good option if you don't like to do injections. You can go ahead and pin it twice a week or even once a week, and you'd have really good results. They have a Pharmatren H. They have a Pharma 3 Tren, which is a blend of all 3 testosterone. So the Trenbolone Hex is the H. And a lot of guys like Hex. It's kind of in between the ACE and the enanthate when it comes to ester. So you want to inject it like 2 or 3 times a week. Really work good. So these are really, really good options. With Tren, dosing 150, 200 on the low end is very, very powerful still. And some guys will go up to 350 or 400 a week. Every 50 milligrams of Tren that you adjust per week makes a huge difference when it comes to results and side effects and all that stuff. So it's going to be the most powerful steroid of all the main steroids out there that you could run. And some of you out there can eat absolutely shitty on Tren and not even do cardio and still rip up and still get abs on it. It's just an incredible steroid. Now, do I recommend doing that? Absolutely not. If you listen to our other podcast, Mobster and I do, I always stress, you always put good quality, clean foods in your body, day in and day out. No junk food, no fake food. I follow a whole natural diet, and that's going to give you the best energy, and that's going to give you the most power. Those guys that do that, they have less energy on cycle. They have more sleeping problems. They get more side effects because they're eating a crappy diet. So and if you imagine if they were to eat a good diet, they would look even better. So don't be one of those guys. Follow my lead, eat good on trend, and you'll have less side effects. You're going to want to spread out your carbs. Fasted cardio on trend is going to be very, very difficult. Okay. Because trend is such a potent anabolic steroid. It's a nutrient partitioner. So it really sucks the nutrients out of your muscles. So it's a really good idea to carb up when you're on trend. Good quality carbs. The brown rice, keep the brown rice coming. The sweet potatoes, keep them coming. Learn to make them. Sweet potatoes, really, really easy. Put some cinnamon on it. Cook them up. Put some cinnamon on it. Delicious. All right. Really, really options. Learn to make some pancakes, homemade pancakes on your own with coconut flour. Really, really good option with trend. Honey, raw honey. Always keep raw honey on hand or raw maple syrup on hand. Raw, raw, raw. It's got to be raw. Okay. Not the store-bought corporate crap. It's got to be raw. All right. And that's going to help you get through and help you with those trend side effects of being carb deficient on trend. So it's not the time on trend to do keto dieting or do low carb diets. That's not the time with trend. Trend stacks with just about anything out there. You can use it solo. And some of you, like I said, are going to react incredibly well to trend. Some of you may not react well to trend when you're on it. I always tell my athletes that I train and my competitors that trend, the best results with trend are not while you're on it. It's that 2-3 weeks when you come off. Once the trend trickles out of your system, that's when you can see the abs. Because trend is so inflammatory in the body that a lot of times you just get inflamed and your body gets sick. So you feel sick when you're on it. You feel lethargic and dehydrated on it. And things get maybe a little flat, or things can get fluffy on it because it's messing with your electrolytes. And even if you do everything right when it comes to hydration and electrolytes, you could still look a little funky. I'll throw stuff off. So it's when you come off a trend, then you see the results and you're like, wow, I look amazing. That's when you should be taking your pictures. That's when you should be on your vacation. That's when you should be on stage. It's not while you're actually on the trend. It's the 2-3 weeks after the trend. So trend, amazing steroid, not for newbies. If you're a newbie, do not take trend. Have some cycles under your belt before you try it. It's a potent steroid, and you're going to have amazing results. So Mobster, why don't you touch on trend a little bit and then get into Winstrol, because Winstrol is a very, very important steroid when it comes to abs.
Oh, 100%, Steve. Yeah, listen, guys, I always say that if you're new to bodybuilding, new to getting into shape for the summer and wanting your abs popping, trend would not be my first choice. It's how often have we heard this said? It's kind of like it's kind of like one of those lines in the movies. Once you've had trend, you can't go back. So it's kind of like, and I think I used another analogy before, Steve. It's like having fuel injection or supercharging or something like that on your car, and you go back to just driving a little run around. There's no comparison. But it kind of almost, for me, is one of those, you kind of need to build up to it. If you go with this straight away, it's like, where can you go from there? So it's a fantastically effective drug, especially if you're genetically lean, if you've got great genetics, if you're already kind of muscular and you want to take things to the next level, trend is for you. But if you're not, if you haven't had any kind of other sort of performance enhancing drug experience, wait. See how you feel on basic stuff. See how you feel on wet steroids. See how you feel on high steroids. Try low dosage before you go medium and high dosage, and then bring the trend in. That's the way it is for me. That's the way I think it should be, and that's my solid ass advice on that particular one. Let me touch on Winstrol now. You've got Pharmastan 50 from Pharmacom, which is their vial. It's the injectable, and that, as I just said, is a 50 milligrams per mil. They do a Stanos, which is the pill form, in both 10 milligrams and 25 milligrams. Same as earlier on, guys. I like the fact that there are other options. On the injectable, I would prefer you to go to the low end. Now, here's a problem, but it's also a plus at the same time. Winstrol will dry you out. So what does that mean? It means like, so if Mastron is a hardener, Winstrol is a dryer. And it does that by bringing down both in the muscle, the cellular water, so it's very, very mildly diuretic, but also sometimes between the muscles. So the plus is you will look dry, you will feel dry in the muscular areas, but equally it will sometimes pull water from the joints. I think Steve talks about sometimes the problems with the hair loss as well. So, guys, this is one of those ones where I would want you to be, as Steve said earlier on, around 10%, looking to get dry, looking to have your veins popping. That's another thing that I think it does incredibly well, Steve. Vascularity. And here's a thing. I mean, you know you're in shape when you've got veins on your abs, and especially those lower abs, like I was talking about earlier on. So Winstrol for me is one of those drugs where if you have genetically predisposition for vascularity, it's going to make them pop. It can be slightly uncomfortable for some people. I'm thinking specifically the shoulder, the elbow, and the knee joints when it turns, because it pulls fluid from the synovial fluid. That's the lubrication, the oil, if you like, guys, in your joint areas. And sometimes you'll get that kind of dry feeling there. I think Steve once described when super condition, you could almost feel like your tendons were creaking. You might be a little bit too lean there, guys, a little bit too low. One for you to try. So, yeah, again, the simple fact of the matter is they have several options here, both the vial with the 15 milligrams and then both the 10 and the 25 milligram pills. There's only one other drug I can think of, Steve, which would probably be Dianabol, where some people are happy to use an injectable as well as the oral form. They all work. Try the ones that are suitable for you. I don't think there's too much of a difference in that particular regard, Steve. What's your thoughts on Winstrol?
Yeah, it's a great steroid for cutting down. I personally am not a fan of it. But again, we're going to go over these anabolic steroids. People are going to have different opinions. Our bodies are different. We're in different situations. First of all, I have head hair. I like my head hair. It makes me more attractive to women. I'm straight. I like, women. Women like it. Makes me look younger. But some of you out there are bald. You don't care about your head hair. Number two, with me, headaches. I tend to get headaches on Winstrol for some reason. I don't get headaches off of Winstrol, but when I'm on Winstrol, it gives me headaches. And it's probably because of the issues it's having on my lipids, issues I'm having with blood pressure when on Winstrol. So Winstrol has a lot more side effects than people think. A lot of people think. So for me, 25 milligrams is my sweet spot. But for some of you out there, 50 milligrams, you're going to be able to tolerate it. But here's the thing, like Winstrol has a lot more side effects than people think. Don't let the old graphs fool you, because those old graphs, they go off of estrogen, because back then they didn't have anti-estrogen. So those, if you ask someone who's like really old school, they're like in their 70s or something, they have history using steroids, they'll be, oh, Winstrol doesn't have many side effects. Actually, it does. It's just that it doesn't have estrogenic side effects. So that's what they worried about back in the 70s and 80s, because they had no way to combat estrogen issues. But some of you are going to absolutely love Winstrol. My old podcast, so he loved it. It's, if you can really tolerate it, it's an amazing steroid. I personally, though, I rather go with Masteron. It's got way less side effects for me than Winstrol does. So I'm a big Masteron fan over Winstrol. But if you can tolerate Winstrol, it's an absolutely incredible steroid to use to show off those abs. So touch on that really quick, Mobster. We got a couple more steroids we definitely need to talk about.
I'm just going to jump in here with one more point on Pharmacom's Winstrol here, Steve. And I'll read it out specifically, and then I'll explain what it means. It says, at present, they believe it to be the most micronized stanozol on the market. What do they mean by that? Well, we all know that steroids, the raws, is a powder, which is then added to the liquid, alcohol, or oil. And what do they mean by most micronized? It's basically the powder is as fine as it's possible to be, which means when it's added to the oil or alcohol, it's in suspension, and it's that easier to dissolve. It's less likely to crystallize, and it's much more kinder on the body and more available in the body when it's done. You can use this with actually other supplements, Steve, as well as performance-enhancing drugs. Micronization, there's let me do this because I've done this with creatine. You have what's called different mesh sizes, guys. And the mesh is a definition in the laboratory of the superfine sizes of powder. So grain of sugar is large, flour would be the next size down, and then, for example, icing sugar is superfine. Creatine comes in those kind of forms. The same thing applies to raw steroid powders. So micronized is the smallest particulate size they can possibly do, which dissolves better, stays dissolved longer and better, and is more easily absorbed in the body. And Pharmacom specifically state in the fact that they believe their product to be the most micronized stanozol on the market. So check it out if for that reason, if for no other reason, Steve. Back to you for the next choice.
So they've got Primobolan, Pharma Prim 100, both in vials and amps. That's an option for those of you who don't mind spending a little bit more money on a cycle. Primobolan, a lot of guys swear by it. They really, really like it. You don't see it being used too much anymore because it's a lot, it's hard to find. It's more expensive than the other steroids, and it's much less effective. It's a very weak steroid, but that's why a lot of guys like it, because they can run Primobolan. Doesn't even feel like you're using steroids. So with Primobolan, you want to do at least 500, maybe 6, 7, 800 even milligrams a week of it to get really of an effect. So in this case, you want to inject, since it's 100 milligrams per cc, that's a lot of injecting. So you might want to just do 100 milligrams a day. So that'd be 700 milligrams a week, and go that route. And you can run it with something androgenic, a little bit of Tren, a little bit of Test, maybe even a little bit of you could run it with Anavar, even though Anavar isn't androgenic. You'd run, a lot of guys like to run it with Anavar anyway. And it'd be a really interesting cycle with low side effects, not any androgenic kits. You're not going to get too much strength changes, but you are going to lean out, and it's going to give you those cuts while you're on it. And it is a DHT derivative, as is Anavar, as is Winstrol, and as is Masteron. So that's kind of the theme of this podcast here, where we're talking about getting abs. You want to run things that don't aromatize into estrogen. Primobolan does not aromatize into estrogen, so you're not going to get water retention. Now, another one that they have is called Pharma Bold. Now, they have a 300 in amps and in vials, 300 milligrams per milliliter. That's really cool because you don't have to inject that often. But what's even cooler is they have one called Pharma Bold 500. So 500 milligrams per milliliter. That is really nice because you can just take 1 cc and pin it once a week, and you're done. You're good to go. And it's going to give you all those benefits of equipoise. What I really like about equipoise is it's great if you like to be active. So what we talked about at the beginning of the show about fasted cardio. If you want to do fasted cardio, you could do the equipoise, the boldenone equipoise, and you could stack it with Turinabol. And you could do just 1 cc of the boldenone, and you could do, let's say, 30, 40 milligrams a day, or even 20 milligrams a day of the T-bol. And it won't fuck with your cardio. In fact, it'll enhance your cardio. You'll feel more wind on it, and you'll be able to do more cardio, and you won't have the negative side effects that come with so many different steroids. On the flip side, what I talked about in the last segment about Tren will destroy your cardio. That's why I told you, forget fasted cardio when you're on Tren, because you're going to dehydrate yourself. You're going to throw your electrolyte imbalance off. If you sweat while you're on Tren, you're screwed, because your electrolytes are already going to be in balance. Sweating on Tren, you'll be in big trouble. So with both EQ, you can do the EQ and the T-bol, and you can do fasted cardio. You can fast all day. It ain't going to mess with you. It's not gonna mess with your carb intake, not your glycogen, any of that. So you can really, it allows you to really, really focus in on cutting down your calories and fasting and all that good stuff to really, really burn off the excess body fat. So I really like that as an option, and it's a low side effect option. So that's the cycle that I like if I like to do a lot of cardio and do a lot of fasting on a cycle. In fact, I'm probably going to do this as my next cycle because of that. And that sounds like a good idea, Mobster. I'm going to have to order myself a vial of Pharma. See, the thing is, if you order if you order it, it's cheap as fuck. You can buy the Pharma Bowl 500. You can run 500 milligrams a week for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And you just need one vial.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh. I mean, that's cheap. And then you can run some
Seriously, right? Yeah.
So I could basically pay like less than, I'd be paying like $160 for this cycle. That's it.
Yeah.
And then I could just do a lot of fasting. I could cut down my calories. I can do fasted cardio. I can do hot yoga. I could sweat my balls off during the summer, and it won't affect me. How about that? So if that's what you want, then do it. But if you wanted to try some of the other ones, try some of the other ones too. So we gave you some really good options on this podcast, Mobster. So why don't you take us to your final thoughts? It was a great show. And come on the forums, guys, and support Pharmacom. They're a really, really good brand. And we would love to hear your opinions in the comment sections of what you guys think, or you can come on the forum and make comments on what you think about what works for you when it comes to building those rock hard summer abs. Go ahead, Mobster.
Yeah, sorry, someone just tried to call me. So, guys, summer fat. You want to say summer abs and low body fat. Summer's coming. This is a time of you should be listening to this podcast. We want you to get into shape. We want your abs to pop. Pharmacom's going to help you do that. Remember what we said earlier on. If it's just nature, guys, and it's just about looking amazing, having those abs popping, having rock hard abs, having a flat stomach, then hopefully our podcast has given you all the bits of information you need to know. With Pharmacom providing you with multiple, and I mean multiple options for you, and with both vials and ampules, different amounts, different dosages, you name it, they've got it. Seriously. And again, guys, who doesn't want male, female? I don't care what kind of sex you are. I don't care which way you hang, whatever. Everybody wants a flat stomach. Everybody wants a six pack. And we're giving you solid ass advice with support from Pharmacom to make that happen. So by all means, as Steve said, come on the forums, put your comments below the podcast. Tell us what you think. What's your best abdominal workout? Give us some tricks and techniques that we haven't mentioned to help the listeners, to help the other people that are paying attention to these podcasts, and find out your best options, your suggestions for getting into shape. Please note, we are not doctors, and these opinions are ours. It's our viewing based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.